Welcome to another unboxing from theplayersaid.com. My name is Grant. Today I'm actually unboxing a prototype copy of an upcoming game that will be available for pre-sale or pre-order in the next few weeks. The game is called Robotech Reconstruction. It's from Strange Machine Games. And if you don't know what Robotech is, I'm a child of the 1980s, born in the early 70s, and I actually grew up watching Robotech every morning before school. Robotech is a futuristic Japanime style cartoon that deals with a future alien invasion by the Zentradi, and then even in future parts of the episodes, Envid and the Robotech masters, etc. But the game has the TV show has the human struggle against the Zentradi using super dimensional Force One, which is this transformable huge mecha that can destroy Zentradi flagships, etc., and also has thousands of Robotech fighters and mecha, etc., defending it. But that's what the series is. The series is great. I actually have it, bought it many years ago on DVD, but it's on Netflix and you can watch it if you're interested. So the premise of this game, though, is that after the Robotech war on Earth, you're now coming together and trying to basically rebuild the Earth in the vision that each of four factions has for that Earth. So it's a struggle. It's a 3 to 4 player game. You can see that right here on the box. Plays in about 2 hours and is recommended for 14 and above. The designers are Dr. Witz, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's actually two designers that have kind of melded their names together. One of the designers actually has a doctorate in economics, so that's where the doctor portion of that came from. But a very interesting game. It is, once again, there are 4 different factions. Each of those 4 factions is asymmetric, meaning they have different actions, they have different victory conditions, and you're not all trying to win in the same way and fashion, which is a very interesting concept. We as wargamers have played the coin series. We've played every volume in the coin series. We've ranked the volumes of the coin series. We frankly love the coin series from GMT Games. But the coin series stands for counterinsurgency and deals with this concept of different factions have different objectives, different ways of winning, and you have to play working together with your part ally against your enemy, and in essence, your part enemy, as each of you tries to meet your own victory conditions. So this game is not a coin series game, but it is based on the coin series. I think it has some similarities, not only in the asymmetry, but there is a correlation between at least a couple of the factions. One is that government force or very powerful force, and the other one is more of an insurgent force trying to undo what the government is trying to do. So that's enough about the game. Once again, this is a prototype copy ahead of what is being referred to as a pre-sale. So I think this is from Game Crafters. They've made the prototype copy. It's very well done and very cool. In fact, I was giddy when I received this to open it up and kind of check it out. But here is the rule book. You can see the great art. The rule book is very well done. I actually just reviewed it before I wanted to get into this video, but it talks about the concept of what asymmetry is and how you go about doing what you need to do while your other opponents and sub-allies, in essence, go about doing what they're trying to do. Great illustrations taken basically right from the series. Uses a similar style and feel. Here's a look at the board. We'll look at it here in a moment, and the general setup. You can play the game with only 3 players, and you're going to control one of the factions, the Robotech Expeditionary Force, as a bot. It's got kind of a priority list in the back. I'll show you that here in just a minute. There it goes through setup. Talks about how to get that set up. Talks about the structure of a player's turn and what a round looks like really quickly. A round is pretty simple. There are 4 rounds in the game. You trade an event card with other players. You can do that once. You can play an event card from your hand. Then you take your commands, which are based on your special command options on your player board. I'll show you those here in a minute. And then you ultimately at the end draw an event card. But it talks about what that looks like very clearly. I felt the rules were very well done. Talks about what control is, because the game ultimately is an area control, area influence style of game. In fact, here's a look at one of the contentment tracks where the player is trying to gain the sympathy of Zentradi civilians. You can see the guy there with his thumb sticking up. As he moves to the left and to the green, he's going to become more and more satisfied. That is one of the victory conditions of that faction, is to get a certain amount of them satisfied, while the opposite faction, led by Chiron, is trying to get them dissatisfied and then take them and use them as covert agents. So, talks about the factions. I thought these were very good explanations of the different factions. We'll go over them on the board. Rulebook is very well done. I read through it in about 20 minutes and got a really good feel for how to play the game. Here is a look at an example of play, some move examples of the different factions, how battles work, how control of cities is determined, and just some rules to remember, as well as different types of victories that are available. So very well done. Here's that priority list for the REF player who would be a bot in a 3-player game where you can't get 4 friends together. But there, that's listed there. There's an index for quick reference, and then there's a quick reference sheet. Here's a look at the back of the rule book. I was looking at this. I'm aware of a couple of these games. I think the Attack on the SDF-1 is one that I've seen in the past and been interested in. I'm not familiar with the Cyclone Run nor the role-playing game. I did play the Palladium role-playing game from the 80s on Robotech and loved it. Had a couple of different very fun characters. Anyway, that's a look at the rule book. I think very well done. Let's go ahead and move. This was a sheet involved, or that came in and talked about the game, just in general, what you can expect. There's a look at all the components, which we'll go over here in just a minute. The first thing let's go ahead and look at the deck of cards. I'm going to go ahead and open these. And I wanted to show you these first before I go over the events. These territory cards are used when you're playing the game to denote control or what might happen to certain areas. And then these are used for the REF bot. You can see it says REF drop, and then you can see the back there. But this is what you use for the bot. Let's go ahead and separate those cards out. I'll move the territories over. But you've got these events. Let's flip them over. There are different events. They are aligned to different factions. You can tell by the icons. And you get benefits and are able to take different actions, etc. So they're very well done. Love the art. Here's an interesting one. New Detroit City riots. Those are Zentradi. And if you don't know anything about the story, the Zentradi are about 12 foot tall. But they look like humans and are really brawny, and that's a look at them. But yeah, look at these cool different events. Here's a Veritech fighter fighting. I think this is Mira's special pod. Mira was a character, or maybe that's Chiron's special pod. I thought Chiron's had double arm guns, but you can see that's one of the Zentradi pods attacking those. There's a riot again. There's some of the Veritechs in flight. Great art. Captain Goebel, Rick Hunter. This is Mira. Once she converts over to the human side, she's a Zentradi. Lin Minmay, she's one of the celebrities, kind of the annoying young girl that doesn't necessarily understand how the world works sometimes. There's a look at a Zentradi battle pod and a special battle pod. Very, very cool looking events, and they all have their different functions. So there's a look at those events. The next thing I'll show you here are the different playing pieces. I'm not going to pull every single one of them out, but I will show some of them to you. These are hexagonal, which as a wargamer, that appeals to me. But you can see they are used for control. And, you place these units on the board and you're going to say, oh, I have a Veritech there, and different things that you might have available. Here's symbols for the different factions. There's one of the covert soldiers for Chiron's faction. And you can see on the other side, it's going to have an overt battle pod. An overt soldier. So the difference of overt and covert, you might be asking, what's that stuff on Grant's hands? Well, when they laser cut these things, it creates a soot. And I'm going to have to actually pop these out and wipe them off before we play with them. I don't think that'll be the case in the final game. But when they do these prototypes, that's the way they do them. So that's a look at some of those counters. There's a whole bunch of them. I'm going to have to punch those out, get them wiped down with a cloth, and then get them ready to play. Here's a look at some standees representing your heroes and different elements that you have. This is some form of like a command ship that kind of flies around the map, and you can do certain abilities when you're that faction. You have Lin Minmay, you have Chiron, and you have Rick Hunter there. They have these standees, so you're going to plug that in. Would be really great if they had an option, if the Kickstarter does really well, that they do, maybe they'll do miniatures. I think that would be really cool. The board is fairly small. It's not as big as I thought it would be. It also initially looks very interesting, but in essence what it is, these are all areas. So you've got cities, and then you've got certain zones. This is the protoculture zone, fabrication zone, industrial zone, and then you have different territories: wasteland, northwest quadrant, forest preserve, reclamation sector, Excalibur command center, and others, as well as those cities. So those are the areas that you're going to be fighting over. Here is a look at that contentment track. Remember I talked about that in the rules. You can see that's shown everywhere. But here's the turn marker down here, and here's where some cards are placed. Very simple board, very functional. I think it looks fine, but that's the board. It's not huge or daunting, but I think it's very, very functional. There also are several of these type of, whatever you want to call them, tracking sheets. That one's a protoculture tracking sheet. You also have a victory counter here. These are things that, and then here's one more. I can't remember what maybe it's area control, like an area control counter. Let me pull that out of the box. Yeah, victory conditions. You can see that, but you're gonna put that over on the side of the board, and you're gonna track everyone's progress there. So that's kind of an off-board function that, fairly simple, just simple little cards. The final thing I want to show you here, and I think the most interesting part, are let's go ahead and, not the final thing, but the next thing, the faction sheets. You can see that there are 4 factions. I mentioned earlier, we talked about the RDF, the Robotech Defense Force. This represents the government player, and they are directly opposed by the Zentradi Rebellion. And what I mean by that is, what the Robotech Defense Force is trying to do is to pacify the Zentradi, refugees, and while the Zentradi Rebellion is trying to incite them. So they have victory conditions that are very divergent and work against each other very, very quickly. You also have the Anti-Unification League, led by Lin Minmay as their hero. They have to control 5 cities to win. And then the Robotech Expeditionary Force, which is made up of Zentradi battle pods and flagships. That is Commander Britai there in the background. They have to control 7 territories. So I'm not sure if is that every territory on the board? 3, 4, 5. Maybe that's territories and cities. But you can see, one thing I want to show you, so let's look at this REF, and this is the bot when you don't have full floor players. Thing that's interesting is you can see the different types of units they have. They have a flagship. That's that thing that I was mentioning that flies around and can spawn units in different territories. You have battle pods, which are your combat units. The interesting thing about the REF and their battle pods is you actually have to assemble them and construct them to then deploy them on the board. So it's kind of a slow process, methodical, but you've got to get that moving so that you can get things on the board and control, because once again, you're trying to control 7 territories. Here's a look at your normal actions. You also have some special actions. Each of these are different for the various factions. You've got move, recruit, influence, and an income action. Then at the bottom specials, you have flip, and you also have attack, bombard. So that's a simple look. The other thing I thought was very cool on the back, they have a very full description of the story behind this faction, as well as you'll notice a strategy concept or guide. I think that's very important because, once again, when you play these games, you kind of want to know what you're doing and how you're going to win. Here's a look at the Robotech Defense Force. I wanted to talk about this one because I'm geeking out about the different mecha and the Veritech fighter. There you have a Veritech fighter. That's a transformable plane that can transform into a humanoid battle pod, or battleoid is what they call them. It has a GU-11 kind of chain gun. Sounded amazing, the sound effects they used for that. That's what guys like Commander Rick Hunter and Roy Fokker flew. Were very deadly and very good. You also see a military mecha there on the right side. The one that is shown there, do you know what kind that is? Do you remember, those that know Robotech? That is actually a Tomahawk. It's a ground-based battleoid, and it's typically used for defense. They had many different types. They had a Spartan that had a bunch of missile pods on its back. They had a Mach 2, which was basically 7 or 8 big guns on a chassis. They had a Gladiator, several different types, but typically those were typically used only for defense and control. But here you also see a look at the normal actions for this faction. Move, flip, attack, and income. So they're not divergently different. They're just a little bit different what is required and how they get things done, as well as those costs. Then the special actions are recruit and then influence. So you've got those 4 different factions. Very well done. They tie the story in. I did want to show you also, this is Chiron and the Zentradi Rebellion. You have to acquire 11 of those disgruntled Zentradi civilians. Chiron has overt mecha, which are their battle pods. That actually looks like an advanced battle pod. And then you have a covert soldier that comes from when you run one of those Zentradi civilians off that contentment track, they turn into a covert soldier, and you can use them to do your actions. Move, sneak, recruit, bribe, attack, ambush, income, steal, and then flip and influence. So just a look at the different factions. I think very well done, because they're based in the show and have a lot of those elements. A couple more things that wanted to show you. They have a setup for that REF bot here, and then how that REF bot is going to play. So that's another card. The final card is simply a setup card. It's going to tell you what units go in what areas and locations, and then on the back of that, you're going to have kind of a resolution of different parts of the round, and it kind of keeps you understanding how that game is flowing. So that's a look at Robotech Reconstruction. Pretty excited about this game. Alexander and I love the Coin Series. And once again, this isn't necessarily a direct Coin Series game, but it is Coin Series inspired. And to me, that means it's going to be a very interesting experience that I think we're going to have a good time with. We are desperately trying to get a couple friends together so that we can play this ahead of that kickoff. Hopefully we can get that done in the next few weeks and get a simple first impression review video out. But for the meantime, this will show you what the components are like and what you have to look forward to if you are at all interested in Robotech Reconstruction from Strange Machine Games. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching. I'm excited about this game. Can't wait to get it played. Can't wait to see how the pre-sale goes. I definitely want to make sure I get a finalized copy for my collection. So anyway, thanks for watching. I've been Grant from the Player's Aid.